T9C got the fucking juice.
Silver's the new gold.
Texas A&M.
T9C got the fucking juice.
Silver's the new gold.
Texas A&M.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. We got a very short episode today. Going to be giving you guys my NFL and college football predictions, week 2 college football predictions, and week 1 NFL predictions. This is going to be a fairly short episode because I have some homework and classwork that I have to attend to. So today's episode is going to be very brief, but we might go live again later on tonight around 10, maybe 11. And if not, you already know you can catch us tomorrow, Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Before we begin, if this is your first time tuning in to the JT Sports Podcast, welcome. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Check out the JT Sports Podcast. We're not just a YouTube channel. You can find us on all podcasting platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts from. You can find the JT Sports Podcast. If you got a smartphone and you enjoy the JT Sports Podcast and you want to support us, go on your phone, go to Apple or Spotify Podcasts, whatever you use to listen to your podcast. Type in JT Sports, leave us a 5-star review, or you can go down to the description down below and there will be the links to the Apple and Spotify podcasts down below. Just if you want to support us, the best way to do so is by giving us a 5-star review. It's free. It only takes 30 seconds to do. Don't just do it on your phone. You want a reason to check your girlfriend's phone? Say, hey, let me see your phone. I'm finna give my favorite podcaster, JT Sports, a 5-star review. So can I do it on your phone? Sure. And while you're giving us a 5-star review on your girl's phone, you also got a reason to be a little nosy if you have some trust issues or whatnot. But just go ahead, give us a 5-star review. Share the word of the JT Sports Podcast, because you know what they used to tell you in elementary school: sharing is caring. Week 2 college football predictions, man. We're starting off with Texas A&M going on the road against The Miami Hurricanes, man, this is going to be a really interesting game. You got two programs who are coming off really disappointing 2022 campaigns, and they're trying to get back into the national championship discussion. Texas A&M has a really good team, and if this offense plays the same way they did last week against New Mexico State, I think they should be able to win this game. I think that Bobby Petrino is going to be able to improve this offense, and this is going to be the first true test that we see out of this Texas A&M offense with them going against a competent defense. Miami has a really good front seven. They got a really good safety duo, but their offense, though, I think may struggle in this game against a really good and stout Texas A&M defense. They got one of the best defensive lines in the country, one of the best secondaries in all of college football. I think this will be a close game, but I like Texas A&M to get the win. Ball State is going on the road to take on Georgia. We already know Georgia is going to walk away with the victory. Youngstown State goes on the road to take on the Buckeyes. We're also going to take Ohio State, and we got Penn State winning against Delaware at home. So the next slate of games that we also have Notre Dame taking on NC State. Now, this is a really intriguing game because some people think that this possibly could be one of those games that maybe Notre Dame could find themselves slipping up in. They are a 7-point favorite for this matchup. But the thing that you got to understand with NC State is that they're playing this game at home. And Notre Dame, they do got a really good team, but maybe NC State could catch Notre Dame by surprise. Now, Notre Dame has looked really hot the first 2 weeks. We saw what they did in their season opener. We also remember what they did last week as well. Sam Hartman has played at a really high level. So I expect for Notre Dame to still be able to win this game. I'm going to take them to get the victory, even though they are playing against the best team that they faced off against so far. I think that this Notre Dame team, and I say this confidently, is the best that it's been in a very long time. They finally have solved their long-term issue at quarterback. They never had bad quarterback play, but they never have had great quarterback play. Sam Hartman is giving Notre Dame the best quarterback play that they've had since Brady Quinn. So I like Notre Dame to get the win on the road against a very solid NC State team. Utah is taking on Baylor. Baylor suffered a really ugly loss to Texas State. I don't know how the hell they lost to Texas State. I don't think any of us saw that coming. And they lost their quarterback for a couple of weeks. I'm going to take Utah to win this game, and I think they're going to cover. Baylor's defense should give Utah a tougher task or a tougher fight than what Florida did. But overall, offensively, I don't think Baylor has a lot of talent compared to what Utah has on offense. I'm going to take Utah to get the win against Baylor. We got Kansas State taking on Troy. I like Kansas State to win this game, even though Troy is one of those G5 opponents that you can't overlook. They do play their best football against their best competition, but I think Kansas State has one of the best teams that they've had in a very long time. Hell, some Kansas State fans will tell you this is the best team they done had since 2012 when they had Colin Klein, their current offensive coordinator at quarterback. Give me Troy losing to Kansas State. Charleston something plays Clemson. I don't think Clemson's going to take another loss here. This was a game that they're coming into, or is a game that they're coming into looking to get a bad taste out of their mouth, losing to damn Duke. How the hell do you lose to Duke? Lord, how the mighty have fallen. You remember there was a point in time when Clemson was regarded as one of the best programs in college football? They went from being on the top of the food chain to losing to freaking Duke. Not in basketball, people, football. Duke might actually be a football school now. So I'm going to take Clemson to win this game. I think they should bounce back against Charleston Southern. Like I said, they did have an ugly week one showing against Duke, but Charleston Southern or whoever this team is, I don't think they have a chance at being able to beat Duke. Duke beating Clemson. They just have way too much talent. I think that this is a game for Clemson to get back in the right direction, with Florida State creeping up on the schedule in a couple of weeks. And that's going to be a very big game. Florida State season hinges on them being able to beat Clemson. If they can't beat Clemson, then their path to the playoffs and their path to the ACC title becomes a little bit more complicated. If Clemson beats Florida State, I think that gives them a lot of momentum. And that could be one of those games that maybe Clemson wins and it changes the trajectory of their whole entire season. So I think Clemson should be able to pull off the win. They really need to win this game, and they need to make a statement in it as well. UNLV travels to Michigan. Obviously, we're going to take Michigan. Even without Jim Harbaugh, they still should roll in this game. Ole Miss versus Tulane is a really intriguing matchup. Now, Tulane, we saw what they did to USC in the Cotton Bowl, right? I believe it was the Cotton Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. Ole Miss, though, they got a really good squad. They got a lot of good receivers, a really good running back in Quinshon Judkins, and Jackson Dart. He beat out Spencer Sanders, who was the starting quarterback for Oklahoma State last year, and he was pretty solid for Oklahoma State during his tenure there. So the fact that Jackson Dart got the start over him obviously has showed Lane Kiffin that he's made a lot of strides and improvement compared to how he played last season, and he looked really good in Ole Miss season opener. They're going against a really good Tulane team that has a really good quarterback. They're going to be really well coached. I like Ole Miss to win this game, though. They do have a better team. Tulane, I do think that they are a team that you can't overlook. I don't think that they're going to completely dominate Tulane, but I do think that they should win this game by at least 2 touchdowns or more. Tulane, they are a really good G5 squad, but I don't think they're as good as what they were last year. And Ole Miss is pretty much the toughest team that Tulane has faced since they played against USC, and they probably are the best team that they're going to face for the remainder of the season. We're taking the Huskies over Tulsa. Tennessee is playing a school called Austin Peay. I don't even know where the hell that is at. Ain't Austin Peay in like Texas or something like that? I don't know, but I like the Vols to get the win. So next up, we have Appalachian State taking on UNC. UNC is riding high. They got a lot of momentum after they smashed South Carolina, had like a million and bajillion sacks against them. And you look at Drake May. Drake May, I think the gap between him and Caleb Williams is not that big. I think Caleb Williams is right here, and Drake May is a tad below him. I mean, Drake May can do anything that Caleb Williams can, damn near, at least when it comes to his ability to throw the football. Like, I've seen Drake May make some throws that made me go, what the hell? And when you're going against a team like Appalachian State that's really good at playing their best football against their best competition, you need outstanding quarterback play. You want to make sure that your quarterback is on his A game so you don't have to suffer and worry about any upsets. When you don't have a proven quarterback or a consistent quarterback, normally those are the teams that tend to find themselves in upset trouble more times than not, like Clemson. Cade Klubnik didn't have the best game against Duke, and Clemson ended up struggling, and they lost that game ultimately. I don't think they're going to suffer the same fate as Clemson, though. I like the Tar Heels to get the win, and I think they improved to 2-0. SMU is playing against Oklahoma. And this is a game that I really want to take a little bit of time to highlight. Oklahoma is just a 16-point favorite against SMU. 247 Sports released their team talent composite rankings. What that is that 247 Sports takes every team's roster in college football and puts every team in order from most talented roster, the teams that have the most amount of blue chip players, 5 and 4 stars, and puts them in order from most talented to least talented. SMU, do you know where they ranked on 247 Sports team talent composite rankings? 34. They're ahead of Colorado. They got a better team than Kansas State and a half a dozen other Power 5 programs. SMU is not a team that Oklahoma should be taking lightly. And I think there's a strong chance SMU pulls off the upset. I think there's a 4 out of 5 chance that SMU beats Oklahoma, but I'm going to trust Oklahoma to win this game. The reason why I'm not going to take SMU to get the upset is because they don't have a damn defense. Rhett Lashley and company, they're going to score hella points if Brent Venables' defense still looks the same way that it did in 2022. But even if Oklahoma gives up a lot of points on defense, their offense is going to put up just as many points as SMU can. And I think that Oklahoma's defense can at least get a couple of key stops against a really high-octane SMU offense. But you need to keep your eyes on that SMU and Oklahoma game. That's a game that potentially could result in an upset. SMU has a really good squad. They got a really talented offense, a really good quarterback in Preston Stone. Look out for SMU if you're Oklahoma. Duke is playing a school called Lafayette. They should win this game. I don't think they're going to have a hangover effect stemming from their win over Clemson on week 1. Alabama versus Texas. Can Texas pull off what only 2 teams have done in the last 8 years? The only 2 teams to beat Alabama and Tuscaloosa have been Ole Miss under Hugh Freeze in 2015 and that Joe Burrow-led LSU national championship squad in 2019. If Texas can beat Alabama, I think that shows us that this is a legitimate contender for the national title, and Texas football might be back. However, I'm still rolling with the Tide, baby, to get the win, man. You're asking Alabama to lose to Texas at home. That's something that rarely happens. And I think that Alabama, they can win this game even if they don't get great quarterback play out of Jalen Milroe. I don't think Alabama is quarterback dependent this year like they have been in the past. Their offensive line is really good. This is probably the best offensive line play that they're going to be getting in the last couple of years. They got a really good defense. Texas has a lot of playmakers on offense. They got a really good group of receivers. A.D. Mitchell. You got Xavier Worthy. Quinn Ewers. I think he could take a major step in improvement this year for Texas, but winning on the road in Tuscaloosa is a different animal. And I'm going to have to take Alabama to get the win. I know some people may have been looking for the upset. You probably were hoping that maybe I would have took Texas, but I think Texas has a chance to win. I just don't like their chances doing it on the road against Alabama. I'm not saying they can't pull it off, but I'm more leaning 60% Alabama, 40% Texas. Oregon versus Texas Tech is one of my favorite games that we got to talk about during week 2 of the college football season, man. Texas Tech under Joey McGuire, they possibly could have a breakthrough season this year. There are a good amount of people who think that this could be a dark horse to win the Big 12. Hell, even some people have them winning the Big 12 over Texas. And the Big 12 commissioner is rooting for Texas Tech when they play against Texas this year. Texas Tech has a really big test against Oregon. Now, the benefit is that they have to play Oregon at home, which gives them a massive advantage in this game. But Oregon has a really good offense, but we don't know how good their defense is going to look. Their defense was terrible, but with Dan Lanning being a defensive-minded coach, you expect for this defense to look way better. Well, they're going to get tested against a really solid Texas Tech offense. Now, I don't think Texas Tech has a lot of speed, but they do have some really good possession wide receivers that don't really put the ball on the ground a lot. Tyler Shuck, when he was healthy, Texas Tech was really solid offensively. And Tyler Shuck has the ability to be a really good quarterback, especially when you're thinking about him from an NFL draft perspective. Good size, great arm, solid athleticism. And if he can have a good game, there's a chance that maybe Texas Tech can keep this thing close and they can pull off the upset against Oregon. This would be a really big win for Texas Tech if they're able to pull this off. It kind of would be like their breakthrough win or their signature win. And they're a team to look out for when you're talking about who's going to be potentially running the Big 12 when Texas and Oklahoma depart for the SEC next year. However, I like Oregon to win this game. Oregon, not just do they have a better team, but this offense, they put 80 points last week on Portland State. Texas Tech isn't going to allow 80 to be put on them, but I think that their defense is going to get shredded by this Oregon offense. And Texas Tech had a really solid defense last year, but the kind of weapons that Oregon has on offense this year and the speed that they have and the way Bo Nix has played since transferring up there to Eugene, I think that Oregon is going to continue to roll, but I don't think this is going to be an easy win for Oregon. I do think that this probably could be a close game going into the fourth quarter, but I really don't think that Texas Tech's offense is going to be able to keep up with Oregon's offense. Texas Tech's defense is really going to have to play lights out in this game, and you're asking a lot going against one of the best offenses in college football. LSU is going against our HBCU brethren, Grambling State. Of course, we're taking LSU. We will be rooting for Grambling State. Got to show love there, but LSU should get a bounce back win there. Wisconsin versus Washington State. I like Wisconsin to get the win here. I do like Washington State to keep it close. They do got a really good quarterback in Cameron Ward. Their head coach has the program going in the right direction, but I think Wisconsin is just better up front than Washington State. Washington State, they also don't really have a lot of talent and depth at wide receiver, which is really concerning since they run a air raid style offense. And if you don't got a lot of talent at wide receiver, that offense ain't going to be that effective. And Cam Ward is going to play a really good ball game, but Wisconsin just is going to have a better defense. I don't think Washington State has enough difference makers to really be able to put up a lot of points on Wisconsin, so this could be a low-scoring game. But I let Wisconsin with Lou Fickell to get the win. Southern Miss is going to Doak Campbell Stadium to take on Florida State. I don't think there's going to be a game where Florida State comes out slow because they're really riding high on the momentum from their LSU win. Maybe this is a game that maybe starts out a little slow for Florida State, but I don't think they're going to struggle to beat Southern Miss. I think that Mike Norvell has these boys ready. He's going to have them focused, and I don't really think we're going to see Florida State suffering a upset victory coming out of nowhere against Southern Miss, even though they do got Frank Gore's son on there, and he should make some really big plays in this game, but the Seminoles should get the win. Last two games, we have UC Davis taking on Oregon State. I like Oregon State to get the win easily. DJ Uiagalelei, he looked really good against San Diego State. We got Stanford taking on USC. I like USC to beat Stanford. Stanford, I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in all of college football this year. They got a new head coach. They got a new roster pretty much. They can't really use the NIL and transfer portal like that. So I think it's going to be tough sledding for Stanford in this game. So this is it for my week 2 college football picks and prediction. Leave your picks and prediction down in the comment section down below. Before we move on to our NFL picks and predictions, if you haven't already, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and listen to the audio version of today's episode available on Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. We're not just a YouTube channel. We are a podcast. And if you like this episode or you enjoy today's episode and you want to support us, give us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. You see this? This is a cell phone or a smartphone, whatever you call it. I know all of you guys watching this got one. So do me a favor. Take your smartphone, go to Spotify or Apple, whichever you listen to your podcast on. Type in JT Sports. And when you see us pop up, click on it, scroll down, and give us a 5-star review if you enjoy, you want to support us. And if you got a family member or friend that listens to the podcast and they like football, share the word of the JT Sports Podcast. We will greatly appreciate it. Week 1 of the NFL season is here, man. We've been waiting nearly half the damn year for NFL football to be back, and it's finally here. I'm here with my Week 1 picks and predictions. We're starting off with the Lions going on the road to take on Kansas City. Kansas City potentially could be without 2 of their best players in Travis Kelce, who is currently dealing with a hyperextended knee that he suffered in practice a couple of days ago. And Chris Jones wants to get paid, and it doesn't seem like the Chiefs are close to coming to a new deal with him prior to this game kicking off. And the Lions got a really good offensive line. They improved that secondary. They had a secondary overhaul. They signed Emmanuel Mosley, Cam Sutton in free agency. You got Aiden Hutchinson, James Houston being able to get pressure on Patrick Mahomes. Potentially, if your offensive tackles don't play good. I'm a little bit on the fence about Jawan Taylor. I felt like he was a little bit of an overpay. And then you picked up Donovan Smith, who can be serviceable at times, but we'll see. I do think that the Lions may have a little bit of an advantage in this game, maybe without Travis Kelce not playing and Chris Jones, but I still got to take Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. I'll never count out Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes when they're playing at home. Not saying that that means that they're guaranteed to win this game, but it's really hard to beat Kansas City on the road, especially when Patrick Mahomes is playing his best football. And there are Lions fans that keep saying, oh, who's Patrick Mahomes going to throw the football to, JT? They got Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. As long as you have those two guys, I'm not worried about where the hell the offense is going to come from Kansas City. There were people who were doubting Kansas City last year, all because they traded Tyreek Hill away, and they went all the way and won the freaking Super Bowl. So why are we still trying to question the greatness of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes? You guys should know by now the wide receivers and weapons around Mahomes don't all make Mahomes. Does he need that to be a good quarterback? Yes, he does, but he also has the ability to elevate the play of the guys around him. That's why he's regarded as the best quarterback in the NFL. I'm not counting out Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. I counted these fools out against the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl for the same reason that people are trying to make an argument for the Lions to win this game. I'm not making that same mistake with the Kansas City Chiefs and their Week 1 opener against the Lions. Next up, we got the Browns hosting the Cincinnati Bengals. I like Cleveland, surprisingly, to win this game. The reason for this is because Cincinnati is a team that tends to start the season out a little bit slow. And then when we get around November, that's when they really start to get hot and they end the season out with a lot of momentum. Now, the Browns, they're a really intriguing team because they're either going to be a really good team or they could be a massive disappointment. They could win this division, make it to the Super Bowl potentially, or they could finish in last place in the North. It really is a big mystery when it comes to determining how good the Browns are going to be, but I do think they should be able to beat Cincinnati Week 1. Joe Burrow missed a good duration of training camp, so we don't know how he's going to look. He may come out a little bit slow, sloppy, may have a little bit of some time trying to take care of the football, so there may be a couple of mistakes that could win the game for the Cleveland Browns. Their defense should be improved this year. They got a new defensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz. I like the Browns to win Week 1 at home against Cincy. The Titans, I like them to upset the New Orleans Saints. You guys know that I'm not high on New Orleans. I think they're the most overrated team going into this season. I think that they are this year's version of last year's Denver Broncos team. Yes, I do like Derek Carr, but Derek Carr isn't a good enough quarterback to overcome bad coaching. And Dennis Allen, if we're going off win-loss percentage, he has one of the worst records in the NFL. He's one of the worst coaches in the league. He doesn't have good clock management. He isn't good in late game situations, and he's too conservative at times. I like Tennessee to pull off the upset because they got the better head coach, and Tennessee is one of those teams that they're really scrappy. Last thing you want to do is get into a one-possession game with Tennessee with 2 minutes left because under Mike Vrabel, this team really gets their best performance or gets the best out of them when they're in crucial moments. And I think a game like this favors the Tennessee Titans. Yeah, they may not be as talented as New Orleans, but the talent advantage doesn't really mean nothing because there's such a big advantage when it comes to the coaching side of this game that favors Tennessee compared to New Orleans. The 49ers take on Pittsburgh. This is one of the most talked about games going into Week 1 of this year because you got San Fran, and you wonder how Brock Purdy's going to look. All right, we know he looked incredible during his rookie season, but my bad, you guys, but you know Brock Purdy looked really good during his rookie season. But he's coming off that elbow injury. And he had elbow surgery on that thing. So we wonder if he's going to be able to pick up from where he left off last season. And Pittsburgh is one of those teams that they're really good at pulling off upsets in week 1. I remember a couple years ago, not last year, but I think the year prior when they played Buffalo week 1, and they ended up pulling off the upset. And I think they do the same thing against the San Francisco 49ers. Pittsburgh has a really good team. Kenny Pickett has looked really good in the preseason. George Pickens looks primed for a breakout year. They got a great defense with a great pass rush. I think this can be a really difficult game for the 49ers, especially having to go on the road and win against Pittsburgh. I like the Steelers, man. Who you like? You got the 49ers of Pittsburgh.
I like Pittsburgh.
Now, Bryce Young, a.k.a. King Bryce, is making his official NFL debut against the Atlanta Falcons. Now, if you ask me who has the quarterback advantage in this game, I'm going to tell you the Carolina Panthers. I think Bryce Young is a better quarterback right now than Desmond Ridder. And you can say, oh, JT, you tripping. We haven't seen Bryce Young play a single NFL game yet, officially. Well, we're going to see in this game, and I think that Bryce Young is going to look like the way better quarterback than Desmond Ridder. All right, Desmond Ridder, he gets a lot of comparisons to Alex Smith, which isn't a bad comparison to have. But anytime you have a guy like Bryce Young who's able to elevate his game in the big moments, I don't see how Carolina isn't able to win this game if it comes down to them having the ball last. Now, I'm going to take the Falcons to win, but not for the reasons that you may think. New head coaches, even if they have coaching experience with another team, have losing records in week 1. If you go and you look at new head coaches and their records week 1 over the last decade, they don't really have a lot of success at coming away with victories in the opening week of the NFL season. And that's why I like Atlanta to win this game. Frank Wright and his coaching staff, they got a lot of things that they got to clean up before this game. I mean, their preseason was not that impressive. As a matter of fact, it was really discouraging for me, considering the fact that I picked Carolina to win the NFC South this season. So I think Atlanta should be able to win this game. I think the Carolina Panthers are still trying to figure a lot of things out with their offensive line. And I think that this is a team that probably is going to get better as we progress throughout the season. But I'm going to take the Falcons to get the win week 1. I like Jacksonville to beat Indianapolis. Anthony Richardson could surprise some people, but even if he plays well, I think that if you're asking Anthony Richardson to win this game and he has to do it throwing the football late in the fourth quarter, I like Jacksonville. Like, Anthony Richardson, what's going to keep him alive is his ability to run the football. But if he doesn't have a good day on the ground and Jacksonville is forcing Indianapolis to beat them through the air, I think that Jacksonville probably wins this game, and they do it pretty convincingly. But if Anthony Richardson has a really good debut, I think that it's probably going to be because Jacksonville has a difficult time slowing him down with his rushing ability. This dude is 6'4", 255 pounds, running 4.43. This is pretty much Derrick Henry at freaking quarterback. So if Indianapolis can get him going, and they're going to have to get him going on the ground because they're not going to have Jonathan Taylor, so the production from the run game is going to have to come from somewhere, and I think Anthony Richardson could be a large part, and he could be difficult for Jacksonville to slow down, but ultimately, Jacksonville should win this game. Anytime you got a rookie quarterback with the game on the line late, I think there's a good chance that you probably like your chances he makes a mistake and you're able to come away with the victory if you're Jacksonville. I'm taking Minnesota over the Buccaneers. There is a chance with this being week 1 that maybe the Buccaneers get a shocking win over Minnesota. You remember a couple years ago when Jacksonville got a win over Indianapolis week 1 and then they proceeded to have the worst record in the NFL? So week 1 is probably the best time to find a lot of upsets. Some teams may come out a little bit flat. I remember when the Packers lost to Jameis Winston and the Saints, Sean Payton's final season. Week 1 is where you could see some potential upsets, and that's where the Bucs may be able to pull off a couple of surprises. But I think Indianapolis like with them playing Jacksonville at home, they won't be able to really take advantage of the home field advantage because I think their quarterback situation late in the game kind of puts them at a disadvantage. If you look at the Minnesota Vikings, you got Baker Mayfield at home. If this comes down to a game where Baker Mayfield has to engineer a 2-minute drive to lead Tampa Bay to a win, I like the Minnesota Vikings defense to get a key stop. I know their defense wasn't good last year, but they moved on from former defensive coordinator Ed Donatel, and they replaced him with Brian Flores. And although you question if Brian Flores is going to have the personnel to run the aggressive style of defense that he's ran during his time being a defensive coordinator for the Patriots and the head coach of the Dolphins, but even then, I do think that there's enough for this defense to make some gradual improvement. I like Minnesota. This game probably could be close, but I like Minnesota to win against the Todd Bowles and Baker Mayfield-led Buccaneers. Obviously, I'm taking the Commanders over the damn Cardinals. Do you guys know that the Cardinals were starting Joshua Dobbs? Their quarterback situation is so dire that they're just going to say, F it. We're going to start a guy that we just traded for a week ago. Now, Kyler Murray is going to play this year at some point. They have already came out and confirmed this. But I mean, damn, like Joshua Dobbs, week 1 against the Commanders with that offensive line against this defensive line, the Commanders are about to eat. And this is my lock of the week, easily. Now, this could be a little bit of a cop-out because Arizona sucks. And they're not going to be good this year. They're going to suck water through a garden hose. But, I mean, the Commanders' defensive line, don't be surprised if they have like 6 or 7 sacks against Arizona in this game. I think that a lot of people are really overlooking how good the Commanders' defense is. I think they got the most underrated defense in the NFL. Honestly, like they've had a top 10 defense every year under Ron Rivera, and nobody really talks about it. I think that Arizona, we're really going to see how bad this team is. And the Commanders should make them look really, really bad. I wouldn't be surprised if Washington hangs 40 on these fools. We got Houston and my boy C.J. Stroud taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Now, if you're C.J. Stroud, I mean, the last team you will want to make your official debut against would be the Baltimore Ravens. They had a top 10 defense last year. But their secondary is a huge question mark. Marlon Humphrey got injured. They got to pick some guys up from off the street. But their defense, when you look at what they got on the back end of their secondary, Kyle Hamilton, Marcus Williams, you also have a pretty good group of linebackers, Roquan Smith. I mean, I really like the Baltimore Ravens to win this game and do it in blowout fashion. I like Houston's defense, but I don't think their defense is going to be able to have enough energy to slow down Baltimore's offense, considering that their offense probably will struggle against this Ravens defense, and their defense is going to be on the field for a lot of plays, so they're probably going to get tired quickly. And I'm really excited to see Todd Monken's offense. We get to see Lamar Jackson with a legitimate supporting cast, a legitimate offensive coordinator that knows how to get the most out of the passing game. I cannot wait to see the Ravens play in this game. And I can't wait to see my boy C.J. Stroud make his debut, but I think he's going to struggle. Packers taking on the Chicago Bears, Jordan Love versus Justin Fields, one of the most high-pressured quarterback matchups that we're going to see during week 1. Jordan Love, this is his first season replacing the bad man Aaron Rodgers at the helm at QB, and Justin Fields, this is a make or break season for him. If he doesn't perform well in this game and Chicago loses, what is going to be the narrative about the Bears moving forward for the rest of the season? And if Jordan Love struggles in this game, people are probably going to be saying, oh man, like Green Bay better start looking at the other quarterbacks coming out in the 2024 draft, because it looks like they may have finally missed at quarterback. They went from Brett Starr, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers. Can they finally strike gold again and land another franchise quarterback? We'll see, but this is going to be a really big game. This is a rivalry game. I believe this is the NFL's oldest rivalry, I believe. I like Chicago to get the win. Okay? I am on the fence about this game, but I don't trust the Packers run defense. And many Packers fans are probably going to understand where I'm coming from with this, because many of you guys don't like your defensive coordinator in Joe Barry. Now, hopefully, with your team being fully healthy this year, your defense should play up to the level of talent that it has. But against Justin Fields, now that he has DJ Moore and he has some weapons to throw the football to, I mean, how are you going to stop this fool? We already know what he does on the ground. He's like a running back when he gets the ball in his hands, and a damn good one. I mean, I just like Chicago. I don't think that Green Bay's defense is going to be good because of Joe Barry, and I think it probably gets exploited by Justin Fields and this improved Chicago Bears offense. They improved the offensive line. They add some wide receivers for Justin Fields to throw the football to. I like Chicago to get the win against the Pack. I'm taking the Broncos against Las Vegas. I don't think the Raiders are going to be good. I don't care about what they did in the preseason. The Lions went 4-0 in the preseason at one point and then proceeded to go 0-16. So I could give a rat's you-know-what about what the Raiders do in preseason. They're going against the Denver Broncos, and they're going against a team that has Sean Payton, one of the greatest offensive minds to ever coach in the history of the NFL. And I think that Russell Wilson is going to bounce back under Sean Payton. Now, is he going to be the Seattle Russell Wilson that we saw in the past? No, but I do think he'll be good enough to have some success against what could be a really disappointing Raiders defense. Many Raiders fans think this defense can finally take a step up, but I really don't see it. It looks like Chandler Jones was a bad free agent signing. You do got young pass rusher and Tyree Wilson that you drafted in the top 10, but he's more of a developmental player. You don't really got a great secondary. You did sign Marcus Peters, but he's in his 30s and he's hit or miss at times. He can be really good, but he also can cost you with penalties, and he can be over aggressive at times. I'm taking the Broncos to win the game. I don't like the Raiders. Josh McDaniels isn't a good coach. I think the Broncos are going to win this thing. I think Raiders fans are just bathing in the success that they had in the preseason, because that's all they're going to have to celebrate this year of how their season probably is going to go. They're probably going to be out the playoff hunt by midway through this year. Eagles taking on the Patriots. A lot of people are considering this to be a trap game for the Philadelphia Eagles. They're only a 3-point favorite or 4-point favorite at the last time I checked. And Foxborough is a really strange place to play at. New England doesn't have a team nearly as talented as Philadelphia, but you can trust that they're going to be well coached. They're not going to beat themselves. With Bill O'Brien, that's their offensive coordinator. Their offense should be way better than what it was last year. But even though they got a better play caller, doesn't mean that this offense is going to be just miles and days and nights better than what they was in 2022, because they don't got a lot of talent at wide receiver. Devontae Parker isn't good. He's a good 50-50 ball guy, but outside of that, he doesn't really do a lot of things well. Juju Smith-Schuster, there's some injury concerns about him. I saw a report that came out that said that his knee pretty much is a ticking time bomb. That thing could explode at any moment during any portion of any of the games that he plays in for the Patriots this year. They got Demario Douglas, who probably has been their best receiver throughout the preseason and training camp. I can't wait to see what he does in this game and how the Patriots utilize him. I'm taking the Eagles, though. The Eagles got a really good pass rush. The Patriots' offensive line should be better this year, but I still think this Eagles pass rush should get the best of them. And the Eagles just got so much up front that I think the Patriots just are going to have a hard time, and this secondary should do a good job against these receivers, even though the Patriots could shake some things up by going heavy with their tight ends. Bill O'Brien does utilize a lot of 2 tight end sets, but even if they do that, I just don't think that they got enough talent to pull off the upset against Philly. I think that Jalen Hurts should have a really good game, and I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles to get the win against the New England Patriots. The Miami Dolphins are going on the road to take on the LA Chargers. Now, the last time we saw the Dolphins play the Chargers and Brandon Staley, they boxed up this offense. And this probably was the best performance that I've ever seen out of a Brandon Staley coach defense since he's been the head coach of the LA Chargers over the last couple of years. The Miami Dolphins, okay, They have probably the fastest offense in the NFL. The main concern is going to be how improved is this offensive line going to be? All right. Now, this defense should be really good. You got Vic Fangio, who a lot of people are using his defense. It's been one of the most implemented defenses and one of the most influential defenses in the NFL over the last decade or so. Like nearly 60% of NFL defenses are running some sort of a Fangio-style defense. And even if you're not running a full committed style Fangio 6 defense, you're still having some implementations of it in your defense. I think the Chargers have a high chance at being able to win this game. It's not because they're playing at home, because they don't really have good home attendance. The people don't really show up for Chargers games, and I don't blame them. Anytime you got Brandon Staley as your head coach, I wouldn't want to show up and watch that garbage neither, especially with him having terrible game management. I mean, you look at what he did late last season. He got Mike Williams injured. Like, he played them in a meaningless game, week 17, week before they played Jacksonville, and Mike Williams gets injured, and that was a big reason why they lost to Jacksonville. I'm taking the Dolphins to win this game, man. I think that this season starts off rough for the Chargers. Brandon Staley isn't a good coach. I don't care if he's made it to the playoffs. I think a large reason why they went to the playoffs last year was because he was in a weak division outside of Kansas City. The Raiders sucked. The Broncos sucked. And they were able to beat up on some bad quarterbacks or average quarterbacks at best. They didn't really beat any good quarterbacks. Their best win was against Tua. I like the Dolphins to win this game, and I think they're going to get some revenge. I think Mike McDaniel is going to have a way better game plan against Brandon Staley's defense. I'm taking the Dolphins. The Seahawks, I think they're going to beat the Rams. Cooper Kupp, he's already injured. He got injured during training camp a couple of weeks ago, and he got ruled out for this matchup. The Rams don't really have any reliable weapons on offense outside of Cooper Kupp. Without him, who are they going to throw the football to? Van Jefferson? Okay, maybe he could have a good game, but who else? Tutu Atwell? Okay. I mean, Seattle, you're going to have Devon Witherspoon and Tyreek Woolen. We already know Tyreek Woolen is shut down. But if Devon Witherspoon is shut down also, and they hit on him, I mean, I don't really know how the Rams are going to have too much success on offense. Seattle improved their run defense. They brought back Bobby Wagner. Welcome back, B-Wags. You never should have left in the first place. 12-man loves you. And they also got Draymond Jones on the defensive line. Seattle has not just a lot of talent on the defensive line, but they got a lot of depth as well. They got Boye Mafe, who isn't even a starter over Darrell Taylor or Uchenna Nwosu. I mean, the Rams, they probably are one of the worst teams in the NFL. And if it wasn't for Sean McVay, I probably would have them winning only 1 or 2 games this year. I think they could be just as bad as Arizona, but since they got Sean McVay, you can't completely count them out. And I don't think that Seattle is just going to dominate the Rams because they're just more talented. I am going to give Sean McVay a little bit of credit, and I'm going to say that the Rams can keep this within 1 possession because of him, and with this being week 1, but I'll be really shocked if Seattle loses to the Rams at any point this season. Like, if they don't sweep the Rams, it would surprise me. I like the Cowboys over the Giants. The Giants have been a team that people are starting to talk about more. Nobody really talked about the Giants too much during this offseason outside of when they got that tight end, Darren Waller. But now it seems like people are starting to feel like the Giants can be a playoff team. But I think the Cowboys are quickly going to show people why the Giants may not be a playoff team this year. They're just a way better team. And we saw what the Cowboys did to the Giants when they played last year. The problem with the Giants is that I think that they made some okay free agent moves. I don't think they made any moves that made them significantly better this year than what they were last year. I mean, they are better, but you're not the only team that got better in your division. I mean, Washington, if they got Sam Howell, who tends to be a franchise quarterback all of a sudden under Airbnb's tutelage, I think they make it to the playoffs over you. I like the Cowboys to beat the New York Giants. And then the last game that we got, Monday Night Football, Aaron Rodgers making his Big Apple debut for the Jets. You know, there's some people that think that Buffalo could implode this year. Maybe Sean McDermott isn't the guy. And this is the first game of the Aaron Rodgers era in New York. I think it's going to result in a win. I think that even though the offensive line is a question for the New York Jets, and the Buffalo Bills do have a defensive line full of a lot of young, talented, up-and-coming pass rushers, so do the New York Jets. The New York Jets have an elite defense. And this defense should be even better than what it was last year with the emergence of Jermaine Johnson going into year 2, Will McDonald in his rookie season, and how good their secondary is, and Josh Allen being turnover prone last year. I like the Jets to win this game, and I think that the Aaron Rodgers New York Jets era begins with a victory week 1. This is it for this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. This was a very short episode. Well, not short in time because we still went over 40 minutes, but just short in topics. But if I get done with my homework and all that, I might end up coming back on here a little bit later around 9 or 10. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Once again, before you leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Listen to the JT Sports Podcast. Please take your smartphone, go to Apple or Spotify podcast, type in the JT Sports Podcast, and give us a 5-star review if you enjoyed today's episode. Leave us with a 5-star review. We're trying to get to 100 5-star reviews before the start of the NFL season. Even though it's only a couple of days away, we're still trying to get to that thing. We only got 70 reviews right now on Apple, so go ahead, get us to 100 5-star reviews. If we can't get to 100 5-star reviews before kickoff tomorrow between the Lions and the Chiefs, we're trying to get to that thing by the end of this month. So go ahead, give us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify if you enjoyed today's episode. All you got to do is type in JT Sports Podcast and it will pop up, or you can go down to the description down below and there will be the links to the Apple and Spotify versions of the podcast. Shout out to everybody in the chat. What's going on, David Corona? My guy Skip UA say Jags going to air it out against the Colts. Who that? Go Saints, Jets over the Bills. Yep. You would chose the Bills. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Bills win, but the Jets, offensively, I think they should be pretty solid, at least better than what they have been the last couple of years with Aaron Rodgers, and that defense should keep offenses mostly under 20 points. And even when the Jets were going against elite defenses last year, or elite offenses, they were still holding their own. And that's with them having to be on the field for more plays than what they should have due to them having inconsistent quarterback play. But I'll see you guys tomorrow with another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I appreciate you guys for